Hello, my name is Emily Beynon and today I'm going to talk about orchestral auditions. Now let me start by just saying that although I've sat in on many audition panels, that doesn't mean that this is the only truth. These are my tips and my way of approaching auditions, but I'm only one panellist and I'm perfectly happy to accept that there are other ways of looking at this topic too. So today, just take what you find helpful. I'm going to break this video down into 6 parts: planning, preparation, practice, on the day, in the audition and afterwards. But first let's look at what it is that's so very different from an audition compared with a concert. Well, there are many strange aspects to orchestral auditions. We play just a few bars of an entire symphony which might last an hour. We play the fragments completely alone, whereas the job we're going for is very much a teamwork situation. We switch ridiculously quickly between Bach and Bartok, from Tchaikovsky to Debussy. There's an audience, but no applause. And of course, there's a very binary outcome. We win the job or we don't win the job. And there are many different types of audition too. So if they don't state it in the letter, see if you can find out what your audition will be like. Do you or perhaps your teacher know someone in the orchestra who could help with this? These days, many first and second rounds are played behind a screen or a curtain, although usually the final round is open. Now, I must admit that as a player, I loved the freedom of playing behind a screen. It really helped me focus purely on communicating through sound. And as a jury member too, I love that I don't have the chance to be distracted by any non-musical factors. Now, the screen could be at the back of the hall, concealing just the jury, or you could walk into the room and have the music stand right there by the door with the screen just the other side of it. The jury could be 4 or 5 people sitting behind a desk, or you might have dozens of orchestra members spread around the hall listening. Then there are the gladiator-style auditions too, where several candidates are on stage at the same time and are asked to play the same excerpt one after another. And of course, not forgetting the taped video auditions. In that case, don't forget you need to feel really satisfied with the result of your recording before you send it off. The jury might well be much more critical, as they know that you could have theoretically had 10 or 20 goes at recording it. And of course, check the sound, the balance and the volume very critically. Do invest some time and maybe a bit of money making the best version of your playing possible. This is an investment in your career, just as your preparation time is an investment. So let's get on with the 6 chapters, starting with planning. Planning your next audition can start today. You might not know when it will be or even where it is, but we can start right away with the planning so that you're really well prepared. Don't wait until the advertisement to start practicing the excerpts. I would guess that maybe something like 75% of them will come from this standards list, and I'll put this list in the description box below this video too for you to refer back to later. Make sure that your instrument is in tip-top condition. Don't leave that rattling key or pad which isn't quite sealing properly until a week before the audition. Now, given that in many audition situations the panel will be made up of all sorts of different instrumentalists, why not form an audition club with 3 or 4 friends, players of different instruments who you admire and who are also preparing auditions? Then meet perhaps once a month to play through excerpts for one another and listen to one another's feedback. I'm sure you'll find their feedback interesting, but you might actually learn as much from listening to them play. What do you listen for and find important in a good audition? Next, let's move on to preparation. So how is your CV or curriculum vitae looking? Is it up to date with relevant recent information? For many flute jobs, there might well be 100 or 150 candidates, maybe even more. So make sure that any pre-selection panel don't have to search through pages and pages of your CV to find the relevant, most important information. Keep it neat, concise, clearly printed with just the highlights of your most relevant orchestral experience. And check the spelling, especially if it's not your own language. And always ask someone to double check it before sending it off. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of CV writing here because They vary considerably from country to country. But do bear in mind that this is the first contact the orchestra will have with you. So make sure it represents you and your approach to your work. And don't forget to research the orchestra for whom you're auditioning. Listen to them play, of course, and if you can, live, so you really have an idea of their overall style and dynamic range and so on. Who are their conductors? What's their core repertoire? Who are the players? Now, I'm not suggesting that you alter your style of playing completely to fit the orchestra or flute section, unless you're prepared to do that for the rest of your time in the orchestra, but every extra insight will give you more of an idea of the kind of player they're looking for. So now let's make an ideal preparation schedule. In real life, it's very unlikely to be exactly like this, but I would suggest that you start thinking about your perfect scenario for preparation right away. You'll probably be receiving the invitation and actual repertoire list about a month before the audition date. So as soon as you know that, plan several tryouts. For example, you might want to plan a couple of recorded tryouts just for yourself, maybe 3 weeks before the audition date. And don't forget to wait a good 2 or 3 days before listening to it back. Then you'll be able to be much more objective. Then 2 weeks before, you might want to do a full tryout for your cat and flatmate in the comfort of your own home. And maybe 1 week before, a more public tryout with a pianist and an invited audience wearing your full audition outfit and shoes. This is just an indication. It's up to you to know how you work best. Of course, I can't tell you that. Will you be wanting to fix up an extra lesson before your audition? Then do that as soon as you know the audition date. But you can already be thinking about when would be the ideal time to have that lesson. Would you prefer it 6 weeks before, when maybe you're guessing the repertoire but need some reminding about the direction of your preparation? Or would you prefer 3 weeks before, when you'll maybe have the definitive list but things won't all be polished yet? Or maybe just 1 week before as a kind of tryout? There's no right way and wrong way. Just have a think about what would suit you best and plan that as soon as you know the audition date. And hopefully it goes without saying that you need to take good care of your body in the lead up to your big day. Get plenty of rest and sleep, eat healthily, keep mentally and physically in good shape, practice your meditation and visualization routine, which will help you enormously on the day, and perhaps consider reducing your intake of caffeine and alcohol. So now let's get on to the practicing. If you don't know the piece already, or actually, even if you do know the piece, always start by listening to the entire work. So make yourself a playlist of all the pieces on the audition list and listen to this as often as possible in the weeks leading up to the audition. Not only in your practice time, but while you're washing up, when you're walking the dog, or when you're on the train. And make sure that you focus on listening to the orchestra, not just the flute part. It's the orchestra you'll have to take into the audition with you in your imagination, so that you're playing along with that imaginary orchestra in your head. It'll feel much less lonely like that too. If you have a long list of excerpts to prepare, divide them into 3 groups. And in each group I would put a mix of styles, lengths and familiarity. So some pieces you know very well together with some newer pieces. And then focused on just one group each day. That will give you the opportunity to dig deep into the detail and still keep a calm mind, knowing that you have time to cover everything. And each day focus more on the details of just 1 or 2 excerpts in that group, and simply play through the others and maybe even just the trickier corners. And in this way, with the 3 groups of excerpts, you can get through the entire list twice in a week and still have a day off. I think it's very helpful to practice each excerpt with an image next to it, which captures the mood that you're trying to create. It can be a postcard of a place or a painting or a photo from a magazine, any image which represents the character or the mood of the music. And a keyword can be very helpful too. So for example, for Debussy's L'après midi d'un faune, that keyword might be seduction or sultry. And for the Mendelssohn Scherzo, sparkle, magical. Involving different parts of your brain in this way can really help when making those sudden, rather unnatural shifts between the pieces. Now, regarding tempo, giving a convincing performance is the most important thing. So do your research. Check many different recordings and, of course, what's printed in the score. But ultimately, you have to believe what you're playing to make it convincing. Do take care though, there are some printed metronome marks which are rather unrealistic and are almost never done. And I'm thinking here of, for example, the Hindemith Symphonic Metamorphonsen, where the printed tempo is much faster than I've ever heard it or had to play it. So in that case, playing the printed tempo would probably just put the doubt in the jury's mind if you've ever even listened to it. Now, if you have to play piccolo or perhaps alto flute in the audition, make sure that you practice switching between instruments in your practice sessions. You might not be allowed to play more than a note or two when you change instruments in the audition, so get used to that feeling of playing a cold instrument. If you're auditioning for second flute, think about what the characteristics of a second flute player might be compared to the first. There might be more emphasis on the low register, for example, and the jury might be listening for a more flexible player in terms of sound and colours, dynamics and vibratos, especially if you've got to match two different principal flutes. So use every opportunity to show that you're a player who could follow as well as lead. So what is the jury actually listening for? Why have they asked for this excerpt, and what might they be hoping to hear? Always try and bear in mind your answers to those questions while you're practicing. Sound and expression are of course really important. A great player can enchant the listener with just one note, but take care, it's also very subjective. So I think it's really good to focus on the three more objective aspects of your playing too: rhythm, intonation, and what's on the page. So practice a lot with a metronome for rhythmic accuracy and with a tuning machine for excellent intonation, and make sure that every dot, accent, musical term is lifted from the page and brought to life. In the case of discrepancies, use the addition the orchestra sends you in combination with your common sense. But at the end of the day, remember, you are not going to fail to get through to the next round because one small articulation discrepancy or the difference of one small note. A convincing player is a convincing player, full stop. Now, you might find it hard to believe this, but the jury is on your side and they want you to do your best. But it's your responsibility to offer them your entire range of dynamics, colours, vibratos and articulations. So make a game plan where in each round you know exactly where you're going to show your softest pianissimo, where you're going to show your loudest forte, where you're going to show your super smooth legato and your driest, most brittle staccato. Of course, all of this within the limits of what would be appropriate for the style of music. The most important skill of auditioning is, I think, showing the jury that you know the whole piece by just playing those few bars. So always know which other instruments are playing and how your part fits into the entire orchestral texture. Now, perhaps when playing a particular piano solo in the orchestra, you actually have to play it forte. But in an audition, you have to be able to show you can project a piano and offer the right character of sound, whilst leaving them in no doubt, perhaps somewhere else, that you have the capacity to play louder if necessary. At the end of the day, just remember that the jury is simply looking for a colleague with whom to play. So be the best version of yourself you can be and think about the kind of player you would prefer to have sitting next to you. Reliability is undoubtedly an important factor, but so is musical personality and inspiration. On the day, be on time. Take at least the train, plane or tram before the one you need, leaving plenty of time for possible cancellations. Take plenty of water with you and maybe a snack or two. You may have to wait a little while and there might not be any suitable food nearby. And find out well in advance which snacks work best for you before playing. Personally, I would avoid anything too citrus, no chocolate, no nuts, nothing too salty or sugary. For me, a small piece of hard cheese or a hard-boiled egg work quite well. Other people like half an avocado or half a banana, just to keep the rumbling tummy at bay. Bring earplugs. Everyone in the audition will sound better than you, or you'll think that. They'll sound faster, they'll sound louder, they'll maybe be breathing in different places. If you listen, you might begin to doubt all your hard work to this point. This is your moment to focus on your game plan and have your focus method well rehearsed, be it meditation, visualization, or you might like to try my body scan exercise, which I'll put a link to up here. You may have to hang around for quite a while, so bring a book, a newspaper, a puzzle book, knitting, something to distract you enough, but not too much if you have to wait for hours. Wear smart, comfortable clothes, and layers are a really good choice here, so that you can cope easily with any extreme temperatures. And my advice would be to not wear jeans, even behind a screen, or high heels. Plan your ideal warm-up routine. Now, this could be 5 minutes, it could be 35 minutes. Only you know what works best for you. But then bear in mind you might have to be flexible. The person before you might not show up, meaning you suddenly have to go in much earlier than you were expecting. So in your preparation, sometimes do a 3-minute mini warm-up, just in case. Because you should always expect or be prepared for anything on the audition day. Don't let changes in the schedule or program shake you. To practice this, you might, in one of your tryouts, for example, ask someone in the audience to change the order in which you have to play, or take one piece out of the program, or add a piece from the second round to the first round program. It's all good practice. Now, if you're still listening at this point, and if you learn just one thing from this video, it is to leave the jury to do the judging. All you have to do is focus on your playing. Not who else you just saw or heard in the warm-up room, or whether you feel it's going well or badly. Keep your focus on the very note you're playing and the phrase coming up, and make that speak. And this is something we need to train from inside the practice room. Every time you find yourself going off on autopilot, an alarm bell should ring in your head. Because those are the moments in a performance which will be filled with a potentially rather unhelpful voice in your head giving you a running commentary. So when you enter the audition room, do give a friendly smile, but only say good morning or good afternoon in reply to the jury saying that. And bear in mind that saying anything behind a screen can get you eliminated. Give the pianist a chance to understand your tempo by marking your metronome speed in the piano part. If they're playing from their own part, then don't be shy of indicating your tempo subtly with your hand before starting, and gently suggesting a different tempo if they choose something too fast or too slow. And if you do happen to struggle with a particularly stubborn pianist, rest assured the jury will pick up on that too. And speaking of the pianist, do give them a little smile and a nod of thanks after they finish playing for you. And if you take your own pianist, remember that your choice of player says something about you. The advantage, of course, is that you'll be able to rehearse thoroughly and practice your exact tempo. But if it's not an excellent player, then you might be better off playing with the official pianist. Now, in all the auditions I've ever attended, I think I've only once or maybe twice wished that the candidate got a move on. Far more often I see candidates rushing through and not taking those few seconds to really switch gear between the excerpts. So take your time to breathe through your nose and feel the ground beneath your feet between each piece. This is your moment, this is your stage. The player who will pass to the next round or get offered the job will be technically totally in command of the instrument, musically committed, inspiring and aware of the score and the style, and will probably have an assured, confident, calm demeanour. Who would you like to sit next to in an orchestra? Now, whatever the result, make sure you've planned something nice to celebrate afterwards. You did it! You prepared the audition as best you could and played as best you could in that moment. Have a party, have a nice dinner with friends, celebrate getting through that day. I once even heard of someone recording applause to play to themselves afterwards, and if you think that would help, then do it. Then, before it slips your mind, write down what you did well in terms of preparation and what you would do differently next time. What have you learned from this experience? And don't forget to write to the orchestra asking if it's possible to get any feedback from the panel. It might not be possible, and that's fine, but if they are willing to share some thoughts, that might be a very useful learning moment. So good luck with your audition, and do please write any questions you might still have in the comments section here below, and I'll try my best to answer everyone. Take care. See you next time.